So initially just showing you the overall illustration of the bag and using the pen tool to just quickly illustrate this, and as you go through it trying to overlap some of the parts, but you can also use the pen tool to match right up on the anchor point, and the only parts that you need to do for the background are to flip it so that it goes into the background, and then you'd have all the colors using the eyedrop tool, and in this case the ellipse tool, just changing it and scaling it, using that as a spot to either use the Pathfinder tools to punch a hole through it, or to just use it as a clipping path. Any of the strokes that you can have so that they lean to the inside of the shape, and then you have the entire piece. The shadows, just using a little bit of the transform tool, a little bit of the gradient coming across, and it'll illustrate that section all the way through, so that it kind of gives you a pretty quick rendition of this final bag. So it's just trying to have that to then use the transformation tools in Illustrator. When you take a look at this image, this piece, you can select all of this. Just hold the Shift key to deselect something, and that'll give you just this shape. So you can manipulate it along with some of these pieces that are there. Okay, so these sections that are up at the top for the directions just kind of show it to you. So when you take a look and just zoom up into this, and recommend just reading this through, so when you take a look at using these tools, when you were in the Puppet Warp tool, it gave you these options, and the transformation tool gives you the scale, perspective, and the free distort to work with. However, you do have the other sections for tools that allow that. So when you click on these to leave the window shade open, that'll bring that part out. So you do have this rotation tool, and what happens is as soon as you click on it, it has a reference point right in the center, so wherever you do that, it's going to rotate it right from that section. If you want it to rotate from a separate piece, just click, and the little blue center rotation is there, and you can see it rotating itself across. And some of the same functions that hold true, you know, if you hold the Shift key down, it'll put it at a 45-degree angle. If you hold the Option and Shift, it'll duplicate it, and Command D will duplicate it around, so you can create some of those ideas. If you want to reset the point, just reselect the shape, and it'll put it right back into the middle section. So for the rotation tool, that's what that is kind of bringing across for that segment. And the shear tool, when you take a look at it, inside you have the scale, the shear, and the reshape. So if you window shade that out, so now you have another selection. Same idea is that the center point is characteristic right there, and it'll distort itself. It doesn't have the option of holding the Shift key to keep it in proportion, because it is just taking it across. Same idea as if you set it off to the side, and if you grab it, you can see it pretty erratic. But if you grab it from a distance, you have a little more control. In other words, further away from the object, you have a little bit more leeway, leverage is what they would use it with. So that'll give you that section. So the skew tool will kind of click for that selection. And the scale tool, separate from the transformation one, so here you have it just kind of retraced itself out. It's the same idea. When this does this section, Shift key for the proportion, and it'll rescale the tool. If you click and drag the other side, it flips it and spreads it out along those pieces, and just have to retrace your steps. If you double click or click on the tool, it'll give you all the parameters for it. And one thing you want to be aware of is that when you scale something like that, sometimes if you're not selected, the strokes and the fills won't scale along with it, so you want to make sure that those are highlighted. Inside here you can put in the actual shape that you want to make it from that piece. So it gives you a couple options that way for that section. And so then that's a couple selections. And then the reflect tool, just like it says, kind of reflecting the section. Just put an option to duplicate the piece. And then here's the reflect tool. And again, that's just going to take it right off to the side. So depending on where you click on it, or if you do place it onto a point, it'll flip it from that section and reflect it from that center point. And if you hold the option, it'll make a copy, shift key, kind of flipping it, so you can imagine how you can illustrate with your drawings from there. So see about that section. So take a look at the directions, give each of the tools that are separate from the transformation tool a try so you feel comfortable using them. You should be all set.